find themselves a chair.
So proud of this. Old guy. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning!
I'll wake you up.
And good morning to Elaine also.
Love it!
I am practitioner Robert Brown, and I'll be your presider this day. Let's start with spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. So I invite you all to close your eyes, relax in your chairs, and join me in consciousness. Join me in knowing that there is only one power and presence in the universe and in our lives. We commune with the presence, and we use the power to bring good into our lives and the lives of those for whom we pray. I give great thanks for this gathering today, for yet another opportunity for us to meet in physical oneness as well as spiritual oneness, which is always present. I give great thanks for the terrific message we will be receiving today from Reverend Kate. And I give great thanks for the fellowship of each and every one of you in this wonderful spiritual community of Carlsbad Center for Spiritual Living. I know that today is good and very good. And all of you have good and very good stuff coming into your lives each and every minute. I give great thanks for that. I give great gratitude to Spirit for that, to the Spirit within each and every one of us. And I release my words into the law, knowing that they are true and done as stated. And together we say,
And so it is. Amen.
So Richard James, musical selection.
Yes, indeed. And this fits right in with what Robert was just saying, basically the theme for today. So much to be thankful for, so much. And we all deserve so much good. And the more we open up and pay attention, there it is. So please join me. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This day, this healing, this healing, this healing. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My beautiful, my beautiful, my beautiful friends. My beautiful friends. Thank you for my health, Spirit. Thank you for my health. Thank you for my health, Spirit. Thank you for my health. My glorious, my glorious, my glorious, my glorious, my glorious. Thank you for my life, Spirit. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my life, Spirit. Thank you for my life. My beautiful, my fabulous, my beautiful, my beautiful, my fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard James. I've already introduced myself, so you know who I am. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Carlsbad Center for Spiritual Living this morning, where we believe there is a power for good in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it. And where we come together to teach, demonstrate, and inspire a positive approach to living. As we begin, I'd like to invite Nancy up for our candle lighting.
Here she comes. Looking good.
As you know, we do the candle lighting so we can remind ourselves of the underlying spirit of life and the divine unity of all. So first, we light a candle for life. Life is everywhere present, flowing through each and every one of us. There is only one life. That life is God's life, and that life is my life now. So please affirm and say with me, I am alive. Next, we light a candle for love. The birth of love happens within each one of us every time we make room for the Christ consciousness in our hearts and recognize our unity. I am a point of love within the heart of God. Please affirm and say with me, I am love. Then we light a candle for light. The light of God is the presence and the power. We are always walking in the light. I radiate the light of God wherever I am. Please affirm and say with me, I am light. We light a candle for beauty. We are made in the likeness and image of God. We are each whole, complete, and beautiful, just as we are. I accept the beauty of God's perfection as my perfection now. Please affirm and say with me, I am beauty.
Did you say I am beauty?
Yes.
So what are you?
We're all beauty.
Beautiful.
I'm the itsy bitsy one.
We light the candle for joy. Joy is the very nature of spirit and the true essence of each of us. We celebrate the joy of our own rebirth in the God consciousness. I bring joy to the world. Please affirm and say with me, I am joy.
I am joy.
There you go.
You are. Go girl.
Now we light the candle for peace. Today and every day we open our hearts to peace. I am a center of peace in our world. Please affirm and say with me, I am peace. Finally, I invite you to take a moment to recognize your own inner light that is always shining within. As we each take a moment to honor our own metaphysical path of wholeness, oneness, and mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. Thank you all, and thank you, Nancy, for lighting those candles. So just a few announcements. There's nobody new here, so I'll skip that part.
Okay.
I hope everyone will stay for fellowship after the service. It actually, today is the day we celebrate those who have a birthday in the month of June. Does anybody have a birthday this month? Laura?
And Richard.
And Linda?
And Linda.
And Richard, all right. So-
What about me?
Yours is February.
Richard, can you give us a rendition of happy birthday?
Yeah, I'll be 36, so
There you go.
do you believe me? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
And we have two cakes out there, one with sugar and one without. So,
Can I have one of each?
You have cupcakes?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
as long as they're small pieces.
I get it. I got it.
We have cupcakes too.
Every Sunday, we offer spiritual mind treatment as our gift to you. And today we have three of us present. Practitioner Larry, myself, and Reverend Kate. So if anybody would like spiritual mind treatment after the service, just come up to one of us and state what you would like us to pray for you. Or, if you'd rather, you can fill out a written prayer request over at the far table in the lobby, and the entire prayer team will pray for you during the week. And remember, just because you submit one request for prayer doesn't mean you need to stop. You can keep on submitting requests until the manifestation occurs in your life.
Very good.
The Spiritual Principles and Practices class will meet today for the 4th out of 5 sessions. Reverend Kate will be presiding at that class in the absence of Reverend Maureen, who was supposed to do it, but she's home not feeling well.
Hope you get better.
And we've said this for a few Sundays now, but we're going to create a directory of information for contacting everyone. So please let someone know, Reverend Kate or myself, or Practitioner Larry today, or Reverend Maureen when she's around, if you don't want information in the directory. And now it's time to give a big thanks to today's volunteers for these absolutely incredibly beautiful flowers. We have Ruth Ann to thank. The greeter today was yours truly. And the treats today were, the birthday cakes were from Maureen and I, and the donuts were... I don't know if there's anything else out there, so I didn't look, so we'll see. And of course, as usual, the videographer today is Practitioner Larry, who always does a great job, and thank you.
Always does.
Thank you to Jan and Angel, or as you know him, Angel, for all the work they do behind the scenes.
And Nancy,
Cantaloupe.
back there. Nancy, you're back
You've lost control of it.
As of just before the service, I noticed that nobody had signed up as a volunteer for next week, so please, this center runs on the work and dedication of the volunteers, without which we have a hard time putting on a service.
And we need more volunteers,
Yeah.
other than the same 5.
Same
We
five.
need more volunteers, other than the same few. All right, now if you take your program out, we'll go to the group reading. Read with me. God is all, both visible and invisible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one who is all is perfect love and perfect abundance. I am an individualized expression of God. I am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect abundance. And so it is.
And so it is.
So it is.
And our
Is that what
group,
I'm supposed to say?
and our group song is next, which is Release and I Let Go.
That's right, that's right, that's right, ready? And this first part is a verse that I'll sing, and I'll bring it in. There
Now I'd like to invite practitioner Larry up to give us today's reading.
In the interest of time, keep the class short. I'm sorry. Gotta blow my nose. Kate chose a reading from the class. Now, if I could just find it here, page 41.
I'll remember that one.
There it is. All right. This is from Ernest Holmes, a reader on practical wisdom, excerpting. Compassion is love indeed. Humanity and divinity will be identical when we recognize that divinity is humanity. We must learn to see through the apparent, to judge not according to appearances, but to realize that at the center of every person's soul is God enthroned. Compassion and caring are the ties that bind us together, in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover the divinity in each other. Compassion is the most gentle of all human virtues, for it is the outpouring of the divine givingness through us all. And when we as members of this community love one another, that community is solid, prosperous, and happy. Nations are bound together by common interests and common affections. When the whole world realizes this truth, it will indeed unite in thought and in action. Love alone can solve the world's problems. Love alone can solve the world's problems and bring about the day of universal peace. You and I have certain people whom we lavish a great deal of affection on, and this is both natural and desirable. But would we like these few any less than if we increased our love to include all of humanity? Too often we're afraid of letting go. Letting go of the little good we think we hold in our hand, lest we lose it, not realizing that only we release this good can we increase its expectation in us. Suppose we make a daily habit of feeling that we like people and they like us. We belong to them and they belong to us. In a very real sense, everyone we meet is part of our family, everyone. To love and to enjoy, let's then meditate daily on this thought. My desire is that everyone I meet will feel the warmth and color of my affection. My purpose is that a feeling of goodwill shall pass from me to others. And today I embrace the world in this affection and desire so that good shall come to everyone.
So it is.
Thank you for just similarity. I read that last night myself, and it's good to hear it read to everyone again.
Me too. This
Terrific
thing called
message.
you. It's from this thing called you, right?
No, it's
No,
I read it in this thing called you.
well, it might be, but they don't accredit it to that in the class materials. But anyway, it's a wonderful, beautiful message. And now we have another musical selection, which it says in here that you can start without an introduction.
Yeah, I love this song. It's got some pop to it. You know, it's back in 1969 or something that Jackie DeShant did. It's called Put a Little Love in Your Heart. So give it to the rhythm. Join in. Think of your fellow. See us keep and the world will be yours, and the world will be yours. Just join and sing. Still the children. Your faith in mankind, in your heart, sing out loud, in your heart, and the world
Maestro Richard James. Let's give him another round of applause. And now it's that time in our service when we have our Sunday spiritual message. So it's my pleasure to introduce Reverend King DuVivier.
Yay!
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So far, it's been a very boisterous morning. Don't feel like you have to control yourselves just because it's my turn. I've been enjoying it all. No, it's good to be here. And we do try to have a little fun, don't we? Yeah.
Yes,
Just gonna put this away.
you can throw it away if you want.
So I decided to call my talk today, Our Just Desserts. And, you know, the law of attraction, we have so many desserts out there. You know, so we already knew we were having birthday cakes, and then thank you for Margie for bringing the donuts, and then I guess we've got cupcakes too, so it's kind of wonderful. I'm so glad I named this talk Our Just Desserts. And of course, that wasn't, well, maybe the idea of birthday cake might have fed into it, but when people talk about our just desserts, they're usually talking about how you got something bad that happened to you and you deserved it. So in this case, the word desserts doesn't have anything to do with confectionery. It has to do with deserving, you know, and the idea that maybe you deserve some bad thing that happens. Of course, we know and we teach that we don't have to live in that kind of mentality where everything is a tit for tat and, you know, you do this and it ricochets back onto you. We know something else to be true, that the world is basically good and that it's a matter of us getting in alignment with that good. So before I go any further, and it's kind of related, somewhat related, last week Reverend Maureen gave such a beautiful talk about Memorial Day. It was very touching, and I have to say, here in our center, we don't really get carried away with holidays. We kind of, you know, we keep going, but it really, you know, was touching to me, and I do think that most of us feel pride in our country. We might not always agree with every little thing 100%, that's not the same, but, you know, we feel gratitude for our predecessors, and the life that we live here today is because of what went before us. But I was also thinking about the fact that June is Pride Month, and that made me think about one of my great uncles, Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob was a World War II veteran. He fought in the Battle of the Pacific. But I didn't even know, I mean, and he's been long gone, you know. But I didn't even know until I was an adult that he was a gay man. I had no idea. I just knew him as the most generous Uncle Bob, who always, he just walked into a room and it was like sunshine walked into your room. He made everyone laugh. And he also made you sing. So he was just a great guy, and I just thought, you know, individually, we are always a choice. Individually, we're always free to think what we want to think. But we also belong to these groups. And sometimes our group mentality moves a little more slowly than our individual mentality can move. So but I was thinking about, you know, while things that are being talked about today seem very controversial, I was thinking about how happy he would be just to have known that people like him were allowed to at least be talked about, if nothing more, mentioned, you know. just that kind of freedom that has come into our society. We're still working things out, but it was nice. So I just want to remember him with pride and with happiness also. The fact is, there's not a thinker called the United States of America. There's not a thinker called any country. It's us as individuals, and we come together, and together we create these groups, right? So we're all part of humanity, and we have this shared cultural consciousness that we just do. We share a lot with people that are total strangers. Each nation has a certain kind of culture. Here in San Diego, you know, people just kind of love Mexican food. And I had grown up in Los Angeles, and our family always ate hot dogs. And growing up here in San Diego, my kids always wanted burritos. You know, we just have these little things that when you move from one group to another, and it is our shared culture. And here in this center, we have a shared culture too. And I love it. I think it's really positive. Now, you know, I'm the minister, but I also have to do things to bring my mind up to a level where I feel like I have something to say. And so this morning, I was listening to a radio show by Ernest Holmes. Maybe from the 50s, I'm not exactly sure when, but it was called How to Get Along with People. And what he said was, basically, I mean, he said a lot, and it was good. He said, well, what you have to do is you have to love people. You have to see the good in them. Just try to get along with them, work with them, and then let them alone. You know, love them, but let them alone. Don't try to force them to be any particular way. I was listening, there's been, I don't know, I guess some people have other hobbies that are maybe more healthful, but I happen to have a hobby of watching the news. So I was watching Doris Kearns Goodwin, who is a very well-known presidential historian, and she was talking about how our country is in the process of healing, that some of the discord is being healed right now. And one of the things she said, well, nothing is possible until you believe it is possible. And I heard that, and it was like, yes, that's what we teach, right? And it was so wonderful to see how these ideas are just floating out there in our shared culture, that things become possible once we believe they're possible. These ideas are becoming very mainstream, and it's wonderful. And really, if you think about it, if you look back in the Bible, that's where you find the words, with God all things are possible. So over these 2,000 years, this idea has taken root, and it has evolved, and it has spread out, and more people just think about it as a very natural thought. Oh, well, you know, if you believe it, you can achieve it, the power of positive thinking. And the reality is, all things are possible because there is only one thing. There's only one thing, and that's spirit. So in our class, which we had 3 sessions, then skipped because we had important things to do, like have just things, celebrate, I don't know, have holidays, I guess. But this class is based on the book, this thing called You, and I'm holding it up because if you don't own this book, because I've had to reread it for the class, it is really fabulous. And what I like about it is, one thing is, it's written by the founder of our teaching, Ernest Holmes, who also wrote The Science of Mind, which is a lot thicker, goes into more detail, and is a little hard to read, to be honest. This book is so straightforward. It's more like he's talking to you as as just a friend instead of as a student. So it's very nice. And I know that the reading that practitioner Larry gave was attributed to a compendium of his work. So it might have come from the book. So just to explain, oh, I saw it here, I saw it there. So, you know, people do take some of his writings and put them together on a certain topic. So I think that may be where that quote came from. Well, this week's reading was chapter 11. Chapter 11, 12, and 13. And so when I was reading it, I was like, the very first sentence is what we're talking about. So this is what he wrote in the very first sentence of chapter 11. He said, you use the same power to drive your automobile forward or in reverse to drive it backward. That makes sense, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The energy is not good when you're driving forward, and it's not bad when you're driving backward. It's not evil if you put your car in reverse. And then he says, we have to eliminate the idea of good and evil as entities opposing each other, and realize that there is actually but one life principle. Just like there's one electric energy or one, fueled energy in our physical world that can be used for any purpose, there is only one creative spirit wherever you perceive it. There's only one spiritual power wherever you may understand it. The creative principle of life is ever present, everywhere, always. And being everywhere present, then that means it must be in you. In fact, it is you. Because there's nothing but spirit, and everything we experience is spirit becoming, spirit being, spirit manifesting as life. So since this is true, he goes on, then this creative principle must be available at the very center of your being, right? The creative principle is in you. It's available to you. So what we call God is actually this creative principle of life. And lately I've been thinking it more and more as divine givingness, because that kind of helps me if I think of it as divine givingness, because it helps me realize that Spirit's always giving and I'm not always saying yes. Right? Sometimes I'm putting it in forward and sometimes I'm putting it in reverse. But it's always there, and I try to keep shifting my mind more and more towards an attitude of appreciation and gratitude, because I do think that is the same as like putting your car in drive. When you're grateful for life, you can move forward in life more easily. Holmes tells us that the principle of life is never limited. Any limitation, and we all have, well, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it all. We all have limitations in our life. I mean, that's how it seems to me. So for whatever reason. And so Holmes says, because this is true, that we know on the one hand that the creative principle of life is unlimited, and yet we find that our lives are limited, then we have to look at what is the source of our limitation. The source of our limitation is within ourselves. We limit ourselves. Now, he didn't say this in this part, but I want to say it's not all bad, right? So some limitations are a focusing. We don't want to just, I don't want to just sit there in what's called samadhi and be totally zoned out. Oh, it's all good. I want to get up and make breakfast too, right? So we do need to focus. We may have some limitation. It's just like putting your car in forward or reverse. Deciding what you're going to do isn't necessarily bad, but you have to recognize that you're the one making the decision. And you're free to make decisions that move you toward your dreams or that stall you out. Well, it was a very nice rain.
Use your body.
As we'll call it, a musical
nice
rain. It's very sweet. See, now we can make these decisions consciously, or we can make these decisions unconsciously. We're always thinking. I was going to look up how many thoughts people had in a day, because I remembered reading it was 70,000 thoughts a day. And then I started looking up, and it was like, oh, big controversy. Someone else said we only have 6,000 thoughts a day. And I thought, why do I even care? What does that have to do with anything? But the thing is, you know, our thoughts, and I know that you all have all kinds of thoughts, right? You have positive thoughts, negative thoughts, random thoughts, thoughts that you just saw something, oh, that's a nice flower, thoughts, you know, that are just reactions, and then we also have thoughts that are inspiration, that well up from us, and we're just like, oh, I know, I've got, this means something to me, you know, kind of like when I was thinking, well, I'll just talk about desserts, and then I realized, well, that's just what our lesson is about in class today. It's about what determines what we deserve in our life. You know, how do we begin to shape that into something that we would like to experience? So we have often said that life responds to us like a mirror, right? That what you think is reflected and comes back to you. Now just turn that on its head for a minute and say, well, when I look in the mirror, aren't I getting information about myself? Right? If I look in the mirror, I see, oh, I need to comb my hair, my hair's fine, whatever. You're getting information about yourself. So if life is like a mirror and we look at our life, it's giving us information about ourselves. So and maybe we need to straighten ourselves up a little bit or get back on course, or maybe it's glorious and life is good. But we're always getting this information. It's a back and forth between us and between life, and it's beautiful. And when we talk about the law of circulation, we are in circulation as an individualized one within the absolute oneness, the allness. And what flows out into the world from us is actually our light and our wisdom that we're sharing with the world and everything we do, because I know each and every person here, you know, is a light in the world. You all are.
Thank you.
And it's the truth. And we're also gathering and being illumined by each other and by this whole thing called life. So anyway, what Holmes is saying, you know, is once we know that it's true, that it's done to us as we believe, there's a message in that, and the message is that there's something responding to our belief. We don't have to have blind faith in this thing we call God. We can have faith because we see how it works in action. So I don't see gravity, but I know if I drop these papers, I see how it works in action. I know it exists. So I don't actually, I mean, I wish I could say I saw God, but, except in your smiling faces. But I know there is something that is always responding to my beliefs, whether they're conscious or unconscious, right? So both my plus conscious, I want to admit that I have these beliefs, and then maybe my other beliefs that might serve me better if I could let go of them. But there's always something responding to our belief, and this is so phenomenally important for us to bear in mind. It is the reason why we can use positive thinking to change our lives for the better, because this is real. You can call it God, or you can think of it as the principle of your being, because it's not separate from you. It's not even within you or with you. It's not just around you. It's everything. So if I say to you, every cell in your body is a cell in the body of God. Does that make sense? Does it seem possible?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Because there's something, if God is all there is, then every cell in our body must be a cell in the body of God. If I said to you this, every thought in your mind is a thought in the mind of God. Can that be true? If God is all there is and you're free, it's not any different than putting your car in forward or reverse. We're the thinker. We get to think our thoughts more and more consciously, more and more positively. We're free to think any thought we want. Does that seem true? Can you think any thought you want? Positive, negative, kind, malicious. We can think these thoughts. There is no thought that is outside of God, because there is nothing outside of God. God is everything that we can imagine, everything that we can see, everything that we can imagine as being invisible in this universe and beyond. So, if there is anything beyond that I don't know about, it also must be God. Just because my knowledge is limited doesn't mean that spirit is limited. So now, where is God for us? Jesus said the kingdom of God is within. So I say to you, this creative principle of life is within you. Can you see that could be true? I mean, we live and have our beings because of this creative principle of life that entered into our bodies when we were born and will leave out of our bodies when we die. So, if you think about this, then you can perhaps see yourself as a center of consciousness within this cosmic consciousness, this greater consciousness. So in the book, this thing called You, Ernest Holmes wrote in talking about this principle, because he called it a principle like a law, because you can rely upon it. He said this principle must be without limit. Your thought and your acceptance can put brakes on it. In this way, paradoxical as it sounds, you limit the limitless. Of course, you do not really limit it, but you limit its flow in your own experience. And then he asks, why is it that you do not instantly heal if the principle with which you deal is limitless? Unless it is that your use of the principle is limited. And so this is where gratitude and acceptance can really help us, because as we become more grateful, as we follow a practice of gratitude and acceptance, we are allowing ourselves to kind of open our doorway to receiving. Because the law of life itself doesn't fail us. We're the ones who choose to go forward or backward or up or down or stay where we are. But the principle itself, the principle of life, which is within us and which we share, is completely reliable. So Holmes used the example of when Jesus in the Bible tells the paralyzed man to get up and walk. And he did. But can we do that? Why not? It's the same principle that he used, that we use. We need to work, and we can work on developing kind of a spiritual awareness, deepening our belief. And I have found over the years with practice that it's true. The more you believe, the more you can think that something is possible. You know, and this is where we come to possibility. When I do a treatment, which is like an affirmative prayer, when I do a spiritual mind treatment, I'm treating my mind to know that what is wanted by myself or someone else is not, I shift from, oh, I don't know about that, to, oh yes, that's possible. Once I know it's possible, then I can turn it over to the creative mind, knowing it's possible, it's fine, it exists already as a thought in this cosmic consciousness, and therefore it can be relied upon. The Holmes says, you know, for us, shouldn't it be as easy for us to say to someone, get up and walk, as it is for us to say, oh, lie down and rest? I'm very good at saying, lie down and rest. You know, if someone tells me they don't feel well, I'm like, oh, you should take a nap. Right? That's what springs to my mind. You know? Well, why don't I say, hey, get up and walk? You know, it's possible. He also talked about the story of when Jesus is said to have healed a man who was blind from birth. And in this story, the people around were saying, oh, why was he blind from birth? Maybe it was because he did something before he was born, like in a previous incarnation, and that was why he was born blind. Or maybe it was because his parents or his ancestors did something bad and he was being punished. And Holmes tells us, Holmes looks at it this way. Let's say he looked at it this way. He explained it this way. He said, assume, and we do, that Jesus was a person, right? He was a person, and he was thinking this through, and he already knew that it was not about any of that. It wasn't about the past. It was about the truth. So he knew that the truth could set this man free, because he knew that God was already incarnated in the man and didn't need to do anything. He knew that the spirit of this man had never actually been born. The man was an eternal spirit. He was already perfect. It was just, you know, so Jesus just eliminated from his mind any idea of previous sins or wrongs or troubles or any kind of influence that could have created this situation. By becoming aware of the God who is always present, whose vision never fails, and whose all-seeing eye has never dimmed, letting go of the dogma of false beliefs. And that is how we limit ourselves in, I think, the more negative way, is through this dogma of false beliefs. And it's, you know, until we make a decision that we want something to change, things don't necessarily change. They might evolve, but they don't necessarily change. So the man who was born blind had to come to be healed, right? So to me, that's the crucial thing in the story. Someone changed their mind. Someone wanted something new. So once this was done, the past was wiped out. That's why we say, well, there might be such a thing as karma because, we know there's such a thing as cause and effect, as natural consequences. But no one is locked into it. We're free to think a new thought. There may be some old consequences, like if you had a lot of credit card debt, maybe you still have to pay off that credit card debt. But when you get a new thought that now I'm no longer in debt, I'm financially secure, your life can change. And so that becomes your reality. And things change. That is how it happens. This is the understanding, this is our ability, because we have this thing, this divine consciousness, this divine givingness in operation within ourselves. This is how we can move and change our lives. Through transcendence, we can transcend the old. Through treatment, we can know the new. That's why we call our teaching New Thought. So I think if you can work with this idea that each of us, that you yourself are one with God, it really helps us recognize our connectedness with divine givingness. And when you see, and when you allow yourself to really, really see that you are some part of life itself, that when you look at these beautiful flowers, let those beautiful flowers be like a mirror to you. Let you see that you too are part of the same life that brought this beauty forth. You really are the eyes and ears of creation. And this is the truth. And so that is our just desserts. Our just desserts is to see the good, to enjoy the good, to enjoy it, whether it's in the form of cakes, the form of a friendly greeting or a hug, the form of seeing beautiful flowers and smiling faces all around it. There is good for us and it's ours to enjoy. And when we open our hearts to it, we automatically begin to share it. So this is what I know about you. You're already magnificent. You already deserve everything good.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful day, and so it is. Thank you. Oh, I'm a little out of time,
What a good talk. Very good talk.
And the whole idea of this song, it's called Starting With Me, is that all change is possible. And we just sort of become more aware of ourselves and what we can do. Starting with me. Yes, these the sea. The circle of peace is complete, starting with me. The circle of peace is complete, starting with me. There's a rainbow over my shoulder. There's a world under my feet.
That was really beautiful, and now it's time for our offering. So Angel and Robert have got some bags. I did run a little over. I just got so excited by everyone's excitement today. So let's begin with our song right away.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so
Thank you. It's really the truth. I feel so blessed. So let's see, announcements. We have a lot of desserts. So thank you to those who had birthdays. You're going to get to find out for yourself. They're out on the table. And after we have our fellowship time, we're going to have class number 4. Anyone is really invited to stay for this class. It's for credit. So the people who have been in on it from the beginning are going to get credit. But if you want to stay, it's open, so you're welcome. Next week we'll have class 5, and then the week after that will be our potluck Sunday. So thank you,
So
everyone.
potluck Sunday is what?
When you get to bring a dish to share, and we have lunch together. So
Okay.
it'll be fun. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So right now, I'd like to invite you to just know as we close that there really is a power for good, that this power for good is expressing, expanding, and flowing as life. And that each of us is an individualization of this very thing itself. And that as we move through life, life moves through us. It's beautiful. Love being in circulation as us, for us, and through us. So I give thanks for this morning. I give thanks, and I know that there are wonderful blessings now being unfolded in the lives of each and every person here today, in the lives of our family and our friends, in the lives of our country and our world, that is unfolding as naturally and as beautifully as these beautiful roses have demonstrated to us is possible. I believe good is possible. Good unfolds for us now. There is wonderful health, wealth, wisdom, love, and light unfolding in beautiful ways for each of us, for all of us. I let this be my truth. I turn it over to spirit understanding that this creative principle always says yes, always responds to our thoughts and beliefs. And so I give thanks, and I invite you to close with me by affirming, and so it is. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Now, if you understand, we've got a song.
Turn